Hey guys, welcome back to another 3D design tutorial. In today's video, we're going to be making an abstract room using the shading tab and nodes. And this is how our final scene is going to look like. So we're quickly going to model this scene right here before creating the shaders. Let's start off by creating a new file. And to create the room itself, we can use the default cube. And let's go into edit mode and delete the front face so we can make an opening. And now we can scale it to make it look like an actual room. Now let's add in a camera and position it the way we want it to. Now let's add in a cylinder and scale it down and scatter a bunch of these around your scene. Now let's duplicate one of these cylinders, and we can keep duplicating this cylinder to make the triangle shape that we want. And now that I'm done making the shape, I can select all of these individual cylinders and join them by pressing Ctrl J. Now let's go to the shading tab and let's give this a new material and call it blue. And we can delete whatever comes here by default, and we can add an emission shader by searching for it. And let's connect the emission to the surface. We can make the color a light bluish, and the strength, let's increase it to something like 30. And also, let's go to the rendered preview here so we can see the color better. And I think it's too much, so I can reduce it to 20. And let's do the same thing, but make it pink for the other cylinders in the background. Okay, now let's create a new material, but for the background room, and let's call it bricks. And we can leave the principal BSDF node here, and let's add a brick texture. And let's connect the color to the base color. And to further adjust the settings for the brick texture, we need to add two more nodes. First, let's add the mapping node and connect the vector to the vector. And let's also add the texture coordinate node. And let's connect the UV to vector over here. The reason we do this is so that we can go into the UV editing tab over here, and we can further adjust the texture for the bricks. And now, if we go to the rendered preview mode over here, we can see the bricks over here. But for the sidewalls, we can see that the bricks are vertical and not horizontal. And to adjust that, we can go into UV editing tab. Let's go to the material preview mode over here. And if we select one of the faces, you should see that we are able to select the mesh for it over here. And watch what happens when I rotate this one over here. It rotates only the texture for this. So let's rotate it by 90 degrees. And let's do the same thing for all the other ones. We can leave the top and bottom as they are, since I'm satisfied. And now let's select all three of these faces. And now, if I scale them, you can see that the texture in the actual scene is getting bigger. And now this looks like a more realistic scale for the bricks. So let's leave it like this. And let's scale it down for the top one as well. Now we can go back to the shading tab. And let's make the metallic a value of 1. So we can actually see the texture even in the rendered view. And now the last step remaining is to add a new material for the floor. And go to edit mode. Let's select the floor. And let's create a new material for the floor. And let's assign it. For the floor, we need to add two different textures. So first, let's search up the Voronoi texture, this one right here, and also a noise texture. Let's plug in the color over here to vector, and this color here to the roughness. And now you should see some sort of patterns forming over here. Let's bring the base color down to a mid-grayish so we can see it much better. And as you can see, the Voronoi texture here created an abstract pattern that looks like water puddles. And to adjust it further, let's add in another node called the color ramp. And we can plug it in between over here. And now if you bring over the white and the black parts closer, you can see a more distinguished difference between the puddle and the rough parts of this floor. And we can adjust the scale over here to have a more realistic scale. So now that we're done with the actual modeling and shading of the scene, we can go back to the layout tab over here and we can save our file. And now for the render settings, firstly go over here and make sure the render engine is in Eevee. And also check all three of these: ambient occlusion, bloom, and screen space reflections. Because if you don't, then the neon objects will not actually glow in our scene. And the next step, we can go down here and make sure the resolution is what you want, but I usually leave it at default. And the final step, go over here and select this folder tab and select where you want all your rendered images to go. And we can just go ahead and render the image from here. Now this is a summary of all the render settings we have used so far in this scene. So that's the end for today's project. And in the next video, we're going to be making an abstract wallpaper using the same principles that we learned in this video. Thanks for watching guys, and see you in the next video.